tanking as a role in World of Warcraft has always been in very high demand, but not everyone has the courage or knowledge to navigate dungeons very easily. So in this particular case, I'd like to offer you my insights into how to easily navigate Iron Docks Mythic Plus dungeon. And the easiest class to do this with, in my humble opinion, is either Protection Paladin or Guardian Druid. This is not a generic tanking guide, this is a walkthrough step by step through the dungeon. Like the video if this is something that you are into and you would like me to comment on more dungeons and talk you through this, and subscribe to the channel for more. Alright, so I highly recommend that you check for readiness of the group before you actually start pulling. So you pull this very first group of three mobs over here. So I do sometimes the interrupt. In this particular case, I'm obviously on my druid, so I'm doing the incapacitating roar, but it's not essential because these are not casters, obviously. And you get enough aggro on them, and your DPS kills them. It's very, very, very simple. Then I pull the group with the big guy who says one shot, one kill. We get through this group and make sure that you stay right here kind of on the straight line from the entrance, kind of like if you were drawing a line, it would be kind of this diagonal sort of line cutting straight from the entrance past this group, not deviating to left or right, and not pulling anything on the sides. We're continuing to go ahead. That's where the first boss is going to wait for us, but there are still a couple of pulls before we get to the boss. We have another trio standing over here, and the patrolling siege master or Lugar or something. We pull them, and once again we kind of stay on that sort of virtual, sort of imaginary line, if you like. We are not going left and right. As you can see, there are groups on left and right, and if some of your friends DPS are going to stop hopping around too much, or if you are going to move around too much, you might pull these sides, which you absolutely do not need. Save yourself the time, especially as it's Mythic Plus, and the time is kind of important. So make sure that you use your defensive smartly and not stand in the fire. You can see that here I almost died, and luckily I have the Splintered Heart of Allah trinket that saved me here. This was fully my mistake because I was happily chatting with my friends here in the group, and that was my mistake. It was completely avoidable. There was absolutely no reason for me to almost die there. Then as soon as you enter this second kind of section, let's call it, of this entrance area of Iron Docks, you pull another group. You do not pull the boss from here, from where I am right now. This was actually a little bit dangerous, I suppose, standing a bit too close to the boss. You pull this group. Once again, the center of this platform you do not need. We actually didn't need these guys in the corner that were just pulled by DPS hopping around too much, and he died, by the way, as well. So that was, yes, he even says my bad. Well, it is his bad. We are not going to make him feel bad here, but it's his mistake. So we're going to deal with this group. We didn't need these people in the corner. You can absolutely avoid them. And after we deal with this group and resurrect this DPS, or he will just run in on his spider, fine. I don't think that's actually the last time he dies. He was a little overzealous. We are going to pull the boss. As a tank, you target the boss, you pull him, and you pull him into the empty area over here. No need to clear any other trash. That trash can continue standing there in the middle of the platform that we just escaped. In this particular case, the boss is going to first be mounted, and then he is going to dismount, and you're going to have to fight and have aggro, ideally, on both the horsey and the wolf, essentially, and himself. I do think that wolf will start charging different targets without you taunting, like he will just change direction. That's fine. None of these should present a particular issue. So you can see here that the wolf is charging. You cannot taunt him back. He just has certain interest right now. Do not hit this red bubble if you can help it, because if you hit the red bubble when the boss, the flesh render, once he has that bubble, if you hit him during that bubble, at the very least, unless I'm mistaken, correct me in the comments down below if you're an expert and if I'm misrepresenting this, but I believe when you hit that bubble, happened to me during some other runs, you get stunned. Do not do that. So you kill him. Once you kill him, you can either tell your DPS in the chat or assume that they know it. All that's going to happen now is we're going to run past those big Ogron dudes. You are going to scratch them as you run past. Yeah, here as I'm saying to them, I'll line them up, you shoot stars. What it means is that we're not going to stop. We're going to run past these Ogron guys. I'm going to scratch them once or twice just to make sure that the aggro is on me. I'm gonna scratch the second guy. We are continuing to run, we're not stopping. DPS, if DPS is any good, they know what it means and they continue running sometimes ahead of you like this, and they jump into those iron stars at the top of the screen on the right now. I am simply lining up the Ogron in front of this first star, and the DPS shoots the star and kills it. As a tank, you don't need to do anything else here. DPS should take care of the two other stars to clear out as much trash as possible. So all Ogron patrols, as many of those dock workers, let's call them, they should be completely smashed by those stars. You saw that these three that were left there, those two trash mobs, they were not killed. When you do not kill them, you need to do one extra pull to make sure that there is enough percentage of completion of the dungeon done by the time you are able to actually get the loot from the end boss and finish. Because enemy forces, right? You need to do a certain percentage, like 100% of the expected enemy forces need to be killed. Well, if you miss some with the Iron Star, then it means that you would have to do some extra pulls a little bit further back. Now here something happened, I will just point it out to you. It's not a tanking guide part, but it's kind of just, yeah, I even say to them, let me pull, because when DPS gets a bit overzealous and they start pulling, it's not like I'm slow. I'm going at the pace and at the speed at which DPS can clear out these mobs. I do not pull and do not recommend for you to just continue pulling for the sake of pulling. See that the DPS is keeping up, because you pull at the speed at which they're clearing. We didn't need to pull more. We could just wait, and we could just pull without risking absolutely anything. Because to be honest with you, yes, maybe by pulling a little bit ahead, and if you're a DPS, you might think that that's completely warranted. It's not, okay? Because you are essentially risking a little bit that something goes wrong, somebody goes down, DPS pulls, DPS dies, and then we have to wait for that DPS to come back or resurrect them or whatever. Now this run through here was a little bit reckless on my side as well, but you know, it's only a +6 Mythic Plus where I was recording this, and I was also going to use this as an example of something perhaps not to do. I suggest that you, especially if it's higher Mythic Plus, I suggest that you line up your dashes between these crates and protect yourselves from the artillery fire a little bit better. Otherwise you might die, and it also means you know, you would have to restart, and that's not very good. So you kill these guys. I would say with these trash mobs, the most dangerous thing is if you stay where those blades are continuing to whirl and rotate. Do not stay in the blades, because that's a continuous ticking, rather high level of AoE damage. From this point onwards, there shouldn't be any more artillery fire, because Skarlock should by now run out of ammunition, and you should be able to engage with the next boss. Traditionally, we first attack Dugru, the caster. We first attack her, that's why I marked her with the skull, but I know that there are some people who prefer to attack the small goblin girl, this one, the shooter one. I try to cleave as much as I can, as you can see, especially as a druid. I try to put thrash on every mob. And if we were looking at DPS meters at the end of this run, which we won't, I can tell you that probably, I don't know, 80 to 90% of damage done would be from swipe and from thrash, in my case, as I play my druid. So we kill the caster, then second target here is the shooter girl goblin, definitely, and the last guy is this charging melee guy. DPS should know quite well what they're doing here, and you shouldn't need to provide any further instructions. Just, I mean, marking a target with a skull, if you really want to be certain, is going to make your life easier, but other than that, there is absolutely no rocket science here. As you start running up on that final kind of promenade, let's call it, towards the final areas, the rampaging cleft hoofs you need to get aggro on them, but they will also charge to whoever they want to charge to. So you will not be able to just hold them in place unless you incapacitate them. And I'm right now announcing to the group that I will have to pull sides, which basically means that we missed a few mobs, so we need to still kill enough enemy forces. Yeah, well, I'm kind of explaining it here also explicitly. We missed too many stars, with the stars too many mobs, and percentage here is important. We need to get the enough percentage of enemy forces, yeah? So we are going to deal with this cleft hoof. We are then going to clear the platform that is kind of right now on my right and sort of slightly behind and on my right as I keep turning. And the sides are those water-facing sides, is what I mean. I charge in, it doesn't, in principle, it doesn't matter who you charge into, but as a druid, as any other tank, you try to hit all targets that you're planning to tank, to just kind of tell them, hey, I'm here, so to make sure that aggro is on them. Good DPS will always wait for you before they unload on the mob, otherwise, you know, it's not very hard to, it's not very hard for good DPS that pumps out a lot of damage to pull the aggro, right? But at the end of the day, as long as you're doing your job as a tank, in my humble opinion, it is on DPS to make sure that they let you land a couple of strong shots before they start going ham. Otherwise, it is their problem if they then get killed. Once 100% of the enemy forces are down, you can engage with O'Shea, who is a very cool looking Saberon. I absolutely miss those guys from the good old days of Warlords of Draenor. He's a relatively easy boss as long as you know what you're doing. You tank him, as always, trying to turn him away from the enemies, from the friends, rather. And he just periodically he does this jump back a little bit and kind of just like, yeah, I'm about to come at you, bro. At that point in time, if it's +6 and you are not undergeared, you will be fine even if you stand in front of him, but generally I think it would be a smart idea to get out of his way as he charges ahead. He will also charge at these cages from time to time and let out some wolves. Wolves do not, I don't think that they have any particular aggro table, which basically means that you cannot taunt them. But they are, I think, normal mobs if I'm not mistaken, so they can just be mowed down by your team very easily. You don't need to tank them. But I just jump sometimes at them as well and kind of put a few thrashes there so that that dot is ticking on them. Once in a while, Ashia will pin one of your teams down and starts kind of thrashing him a little bit. In that case, I think you simply need to continue doing damage to him and then he will let go of his victim. So it's not a massive issue. At some point towards the end, kind of right about now, he will let out a slightly more dangerous mob who will be an elite mob from one of the cages. Typically, the teams simply leave that mob alone. See that chimera that he let out right now? So somebody will blind it, somebody will freeze it, somebody will CC it basically. And we simply ignore it. We don't kill it. We don't kill it, we just ignore it. So that saves you quite a bit of the time if you're especially in the higher levels of Mythic Plus. Now we're on to the final boss. Final boss is a bit of an adventurous kind of fight. If you haven't been here or feel a bit nervous, make sure that you simply save your stampeding roar or any other speeding up mechanisms for the moment that comes shortly. First we're going to kill Koromar, that's why I'm marking him here. Get obviously aggro on both and try and turn Skarlock and enemies. That's just generally a good tanking practice. Try to turn them a bit sideways so that they are not frontally facing your team and there is enough space for your team to operate. At one point Skarlock is going to do kind of like this stomp that's going to stun you and throw your whole team back towards the start of this pier, kind of away. Yeah, at that point in time be ready for stun to wear off, and at that point in time you have a couple of seconds, like right about now, to charge behind those crates. Some people run all the way forward as that dude did. That's a bit of a dangerous move and you need to be really mobile class to do that. I think the safest thing is just to hide behind these first crates and then make sure that you can charge and taunt Skarlock to not let him bash on the overzealous and hyper-actively fast DPS too much without you actually literally tanking him. When Koromar is down, the other humanoid comes down, forgot his name, you kill him too, and Skarlock is the last target standing, which should be easy enough. But if your DPS is not amazing, you probably will go through a couple of phases, like 2 phases at least, of that stomp that throws you back, and then you have to charge back in. Sometimes when your DPS is pretty good, in this particular case they impressed me actually, you will be able to do it without necessarily having to do it twice. And that's it, my friends. So that's Iron Docks for you. Iron Docks is a good dungeon. I actually quite enjoy it because of how straightforward it is for some reason. And I'm a big fan, by the way, of Blizzard adding those old dungeons into rotation of Mythic Plus in Season 4 of Shadowlands. I hope you enjoyed this little guide, little video. Very casual tanking. I think it's rather chilled and stuff like that. And if you enjoy this kind of stuff and if you would like more of my opinions on other easy to tank Mythic Plus dungeons in Season 4 of Shadowlands before Dragonflight comes out, please give me a like, subscribe for more videos, and leave a comment down below to let me know that I'm doing something right, and maybe submit some of your requests. They are most welcome. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.